There are new bombshell claims today from royal insiders who say King Charles's cancer is incurable and he will likely die with the disease.
The confirmation did not come with royal ceremony. It came with Prince William, standing before a small circle of senior aides. His face controlled but his voice heavy, as the palace absorbed the sentence no one wanted to hear. King Charles had suffered a serious health scare during a private morning briefing, and William was now confirming that the monarch would step back from duties under urgent medical supervision. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William had been summoned to Clarence House, the royal residence, where Charles handled private work. A morning briefing, meaning a closed meeting, where the king receives updates before the public day begins, had turned into something darker. Charles had suffered a serious medical episode, and the prince was told doctors wanted immediate caution, privacy, and changes. That mattered, because the crown, the symbol of royal authority passed from monarch to monarch, could not look uncertain. It also mattered because the man at the center of that symbol was William's father, and no future king is ever prepared for the moment duty sounds like fear. The room tightened around him. Senior aides waited for his words, and those aides knew every syllable would travel through the time of household before it reached the nation. William kept his face still, but his hand gripped the edge of the table until his knuckles changed. He was not only confirming that Charles would reduce public duties while doctors assessed his condition, he was admitting that the palace could no longer hide behind polished schedules. Camilla sat apart from the table, shaken into silence, because the queen consort, the wife of the reigning king, understood the terror beneath the public language. She had watched Charles push through warnings before. Now she watched William carry the burden he could not carry aloud. Then the sealed medical briefing arrived. A senior aide placed it before William with both hands, and the paper seemed heavier than any speech. The prince opened it, read the first page, and closed it again. No one asked why. Charles had insisted on continuing his diary despite private warnings, and that refusal changed everything. Camilla lowered her eyes, and William understood that the scare had not come from nowhere. It had been waiting, pressing against the palace walls, until the truth broke through. William rose without raising his voice. He asked for a private audience with Camilla, and the aides fell silent. But before William could steady the monarchy, he first had to face the people closest to Charles, each carrying their fear, guilt, and unfinished battle. Behind the palace statement stood a family suddenly stripped of distance. Charles was no longer only the sovereign. He was a father, a husband, and a man forced to confront the limits of his own strength. William was no longer only the heir. He was the son chosen to speak the words Charles could not. And Camilla, sitting apart from the others, understood that everything around her was shifting. Charles sat privately in his study after the health scare, surrounded by unopened briefing, folders, and a silence that felt heavier than any announcement. The study, a private working room where the monarch reviews papers and prepares decisions, had always been a place of control for the king. Now it felt like a witness. He stared at the empty chair where William had stood earlier, and the space between father and son seemed to widen with every breath. That mattered, because monarchy depends on the illusion of calm, and Charles knew that one moment of weakness could shake years of carefully built authority. William carried the same wound from the other side. The prince had become more than ceremonial, because an heir is not just a future monarch, but the person expected to protect continuity when the present monarch falters. He wanted to be a son first. He wanted to ask simple questions, to hear that Charles was safe, to believe the danger had passed. But the crown does not wait for private grief to settle. It demands voice. It demands steadiness. And William had become the steady voice, while still feeling the fear of a child watching his dear father become fragile. Camilla fought her own storm in silence. She believed Charles had pushed himself too hard, ignored too much, and treated exhaustion as if it were duty. The queen consort had warned him before, not in public, not with drama, but in a recorded private conversation, later described in a documented household account. She had asked him to cancel one engagement. He had refused. She remembered the way he had turned away from her concern, and now that memory hurt, because she had been right, and powerless at the same time. Then a senior aide quietly revealed the piece no one wanted to say aloud. Charles had dismissed earlier concerns after a private engagement, where he had briefly faltered, recovered himself, and ordered the schedule to continue. William heard the account from that aide in a closed briefing, and the revelation changed his face. Not everyone around the king had agreed on how much the public should be told. Some wanted silence, others wanted honesty. And inside that disagreement, the household began to split. Camilla finally looked at William and asked whether he intended to control the message alone. The room went cold. The prince did not answer quickly, and that pause said enough. That fracture did not appear overnight. It began with one earlier incident that everyone tried to bury, until Charles's body forced the truth back into the open. The moment everyone later looked back on was not the public announcement. It was the private investiture rehearsal 3 weeks earlier, when Charles paused mid-sentence, gripped the back of a chair, and waved away help before anyone could speak. The room had gone silent. William had stepped forward. Camilla had stood frozen. And Charles, proud and pale, had ordered the rehearsal to continue. Charles had been preparing for an investiture, a formal royal ceremony, where honors are given to people for service, achievement, or duty. At Windsor, that rehearsal mattered, because it was meant to prove the king could still command the room without hesitation. It also mattered because every royal ceremony carries more than tradition. It carries the promise that the crown remains steady. Yet in that private moment, the promise nearly broke. He stopped halfway through a line, reached for the chair, and forced himself upright before anyone could touch him. William saw the hesitation before others understood it. The prince stepped forward because instinct moved faster than protocol, and protocol is the set of rules that controls how royal behavior should unfold. Charles saw him coming and lifted one hand, not in anger, but in warning. He did not want help. He did not want pity. The king's pride rose before his fear, and that pride cut William deeply. To the monarch, accepting support meant showing weakness. To his son, refusing support meant risking everything for an image that had already begun to crack. Camilla felt the terror of recognition. She had seen Charles push past pain before, seen him treat tiredness like an enemy to defeat. After the rehearsal, the queen consort urged him in a private conversation to cancel upcoming appearances, and that exchange was later described in a documented household account. She told him the nation would understand caution. He told her retreat would invite panic. She pressed again. He turned away. That silence haunted her, because love had given her the warning, but power had taken away her voice. Then the hidden proof surfaced. A handwritten note from a doctor was later found inside a folder marked urgent, and that note showed that warnings had reached the palace before William's confirmation. The prince learned of it through a closed medical briefing, and anger burned beneath his concern. Charles had not simply been brave, he had been warned. He had chosen the burden of appearance over the mercy of truth. William understood then that sympathy would not be enough. Camilla had tried to protect Charles through closeness. The prince would now try to protect him through limits. And once control entered the room, grief became something sharper, because William and Camilla were no longer standing on the same side of the crisis. No aides were allowed inside when William entered the private sitting room. Camilla was already there, seated rigidly, one hand resting near a cooling cup of tea. The door closed with a quiet finality, and for a few seconds neither spoke. Then William placed the medical briefing on the table and said the words that shattered the dove. "This cannot be managed by emotion anymore." Camilla looked at him as if the sentence had struck something personal. The private sitting room, a family space used for quiet conversations, away from official offices, had become the place where affection and authority collided. William had come there after confirming Charles's health scare to palace staff, and that mattered because the household needed one clear plan before rumor began to control the story. It mattered even more because Charles was not only a monarch under medical watch, he was the man both of them loved, and neither could protect him without hurting him in some way. William kept his voice low, but grief had hardened into purpose. He told Camilla that protecting Charles now meant limiting his choices, reducing his schedule, and refusing to let pride decide what doctors should decide. The medical briefing, a private written report summarizing the king's condition and recommended limits, lay between them like a line neither could cross easily. The prince had read enough to know the warning was serious. He had also read enough to understand that silence would be dangerous. Camilla heard him, but she heard something else too. She heard a son stepping into control. Camilla did not hide the wound. She reminded William that she had been beside Charles through the long days, the hidden fatigue, the careful smiles, and the late evenings when the king pretended the strain had not followed him home. The queen consort believed closeness gave her the right to guide him. She believed she knew the moments when his strength was real and the moments when it was performed. Her fear turned sharp because William's plan felt less like support and more like a quiet removal of her voice. William revealed what had been held back. Doctors had recommended immediate schedule reductions after the Windsor rehearsal, and that recommendation was recorded in a documented medical note, later reviewed in the closed family briefing. Charles resisted it. Camilla's face changed when the prince said the words, because she had known about the fear, but not the full force of the warning. She admitted through a tense private exchange that the king had dreaded looking weak in front of the nation. To Charles, public doubt was a danger. To William, that pride had become the real threat. The silence that followed was brutal. Camilla asked whether William was speaking as a son or as the next king. The prince looked down at the briefing, then back at her, and did not answer immediately. That pause answered more than any statement could, because the true power behind the decision was already beginning to move. By afternoon, the palace machinery had changed direction. Diaries were being revised, calls were being made, names were being moved across schedules with ruthless precision. Yet the most important decision happened in a small office, where William sat alone, with a pen in his hand, staring at a revised duty plan that placed him at the center of the monarchy, before he was ready to stand there fully. William did not touch the pen at first. The revised duty plan, a written schedule showing which royal family member would attend each public event, was more than a list of appointments. It was a quiet map of power. Charles's name had been moved from several major appearances, and the Prince of Wales, meaning the heir who stands next in line to the throne, had been placed where the king was supposed to stand. That mattered, because the public needed to see continuity. It mattered even more, because every added duty for William was proof that Charles had been forced to step back. Senior officials supported the move with careful words and steady faces. They told William that visible leadership was now necessary, because a monarchy survives crisis by showing the nation that the line does not break. They also told him the change had to appear calm, because panic outside the palace could grow faster than truth inside it. The prince understood the logic. He understood the need. Still, his chest tightened as he looked at the pages, because the success of the institution now depended on the suffering of his father. Charles saw the amended schedule later that day. The king read the first page, then the second, and set the paper down without speaking. That small silence carried more pain than anger. He had spent his life preparing for duty, waiting for the crown, defending the idea that service must continue through strain and age and sorrow. Now the diary showed him what no one dared say directly. Doctors had won the argument his pride had refused to lose. William noticed the way his father's eyes paused on one removed ceremony, and the prince felt guilt rise like a hidden accusation. Then the deeper meaning of the plan became clear. The duty changes were not only temporary cover, they quietly prepared William for a larger public role, if Charles's crest recovery took longer than expected. A courtier later described in a documented household account that the king did not object when the revised plan was explained. He only nodded once. That restraint frightened those around him, because it suggested Charles understood more about his condition than he had admitted. William finally signed off on the changes. The pen touched paper, and something inside the palace shifted with it. The decision may have been made in private, but its impact hit the household immediately, and the first person to feel the new reality was Charles himself. The king's diary had always been a symbol of movement, duty, and command. Now entire lines were crossed through. Engagements were reassigned. Appearances were delayed. Charles sat before the altered schedule, reading each cancellation like a personal defeat. For a man who had waited a lifetime to wear the crown, the sudden silence of the calendar felt almost unbearable. Charles held the amended diary with both hands, but his eyes stayed fixed on the empty spaces. The royal diary, a planned schedule of official duties, meetings, ceremonies, and public appearances, was more than a calendar for the king. It was proof that the monarch was present, active, and still leading. Now, several duties had been removed after William confirmed the health scare, and that mattered because every missing engagement would be noticed. It mattered because the palace had to protect public confidence, while quietly admitting that the monarch could no longer push through as before. William stood close enough to see his father's face change. The prince understood why palace staff had been instructed to describe the changes carefully, because staff briefings are controlled internal updates, used to keep everyone speaking with one clear message. Panic had to be avoided. Stability had to be shown. Yet the future king could not escape the personal cost. Every careful phrase softened the truth for the nation, but sharpened it for Charles. Every reassigned duty protected the crown while quietly wounding the man who wore it. Charles felt the humiliation settle slowly. He did not raise his voice. He did not challenge the schedule. He simply looked at the crossed lines as if they had judged him. The king had built his reign around service, endurance, and the belief that duty must continue, even when the body protests. Now the diary suggested something crueler, that strength alone was no longer enough. William watched him set the paper down, and guilt moved through the room like a second presence. The prince had enforced limits his father resented, and he knew those limits were necessary. Then Charles asked one quiet question. He wanted to know which engagement had been removed first. A senior courtier later described the moment in a documented household account, saying the king's voice changed when the answer was given. It was the ceremony he had privately hoped to keep, the one that made him feel most visibly connected to the country. Camilla learned soon after that William had personally approved that cancellation, and the queen consort's disappointment hardened into silence. She understood the medical reason, but she felt the emotional wound. Charles did not argue when evening came. He requested to speak with William alone, and the request changed the whole temperature of the crisis. For the first time since the scare, the crown stepped aside, and only father and son remained in the room. There were no aides, no folders, no palace language between them. Charles sat near the window, tired but composed, while William stood opposite him, carrying all the words he had avoided since childhood. Then the king motioned to the chair beside him. It was not an order, it was an invitation, and for the first time that day, William stopped sounding like the air. William sat slowly, and the silence between father and son became more honest than any official statement. The heir, meaning the person next in line to the throne, is expected to be ready before the world ever asks if he is ready. That mattered because the prince had spent the day acting like the future, while feeling trapped in the pain of the present. It also mattered because Charles was still the king, and monarchy often demands that a father and son speak through duty before they dare speak through love. Charles looked at William with a sadness he had not allowed the household to see. He admitted that he understood why the prince had confirmed the health scare and reduced the schedule, even though the decision wounded his pride. The monarch did not call it betrayal. He called it necessary. That word struck William harder than anger would have, because it meant Charles had known the truth all along. The king had understood the risk, understood the fear, and still tried to carry the burden alone. William finally said what he had held back. He confessed that speaking about his father's condition felt like exposing him, almost like betraying him in front of the country. The prince said silence would have been worse, but the truth still felt brutal in his mouth. Charles softened. He told William that duty sometimes means making the decision another person cannot bear to make. Those words mattered, because they turned the moment from a power struggle into a passing of trust. They also gave the future king permission to protect, without apologizing for it. Then Charles revealed the part that changed everything. In a recorded private conversation, preserved in a confidential family account, he admitted he had felt warning signs before the Windsor rehearsal, but convinced himself he could outrun them. He had mistaken endurance for strength. William heard that, and understood the scare was not only medical, it was a warning about pride, fear, and the dangerous myth that monarchy must never look fragile. Charles reached the decision before William asked for it. The king allowed the prince to carry the next public message, not as a replacement, but as proof of trust. That trust changed everything. But outside the palace gates, the world was already turning one private health scare into a national reckoning. By morning, the story had escaped palace walls. One newspaper front page carried a stark image of William leaving Kensington under the fees. Headline: The Sun Steps Forward. Broadcasters spoke in hushed tones about continuity, duty, and fear. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered near the gates, some holding flowers, others simply staring through the railings, as if waiting for the building itself to speak. William watched the coverage without speaking. Kensington, the royal residence closely tied to his public life and family role, had suddenly become the symbol of a shift no one could ignore. The palace released a controlled update, meaning a carefully worded message designed to calm the public, while sharing only what was necessary. That mattered because the nation needed reassurance, but not panic. It mattered because Charles's health scare was no longer a private family wound. It had become a test of whether the monarchy could look shaken and still seem steady. Camilla saw the same front page and felt two emotions fighting inside her. Relief came first, because the update made clear that Charles was under medical supervision and not abandoned to pride. Then came unease, because the image of William as the steady figure had moved across the country with terrifying speed. The Queen Consort understood the public needed someone to trust, yet she could not ignore what that trust implied. Every calm word about the prince's temporary support made the king look more fragile, and every mention of continuity made the future feel closer than it should. William felt that pressure settle on him. The prince was not celebrating attention. He was carrying the weight of a private family fear that had been turned into national conversation. A broadcaster, speaking during a morning program, framed the story as the clearest sign yet that the monarchy was preparing emotionally for transition, even if no formal transition had begun. That phrase cut deep. A transition, in royal terms, means the gradual movement of duty and public focus from one figure to another. For William, it sounded too close to goodbye. Outside Buckingham, the flowers became the image no statement could control. Buckingham Palace, the official working center of the monarchy, had seen crowds before, but this gathering felt different. People were not cheering, they were waiting. Some came for Charles, worried about the king. Some came for William, trusting the future king to steady what his father could not carry alone. Camilla understood that quiet crowd more than she wanted to admit, because it showed concern, loyalty, and fear all at once. William prepared one final message as the public absorbed the news. He knew it could not sound like panic. It could not sound like ambition. It had to sound like truth. And when that message came, it did not sound like panic, ambition, or surrender. It sounded like a family finally accepting the truth. William's final words did not try to make the scare disappear. He did not pretend Charles was untouched by the strain, and he did not turn the moment into a performance of royal perfection. Instead, he confirmed what the palace had resisted admitting for too long. The king needed rest, the family needed honesty, and the monarchy needed strength that did not depend on pretending nothing hurt. William delivered the final emotional message, with the calm of a man who understood the cost of every word. The monarchy, meaning the system where a king or queen carries national duty through inherited authority, had often survived by appearing unshaken. This time, that old mask could not hold. The prince made clear that Charles would continue under careful medical guidance, while duties were responsibly adjusted, and that mattered because the public needed truth without terror. It also mattered because the king deserved protection without being made to feel powerless. Charles listened privately, and sorrow moved through him before pride returned. The monarch heard his son speak not as a rival, not as a replacement, but as someone carrying the weight beside him. He understood then that William had not diminished him. He had protected him. The king felt the pain of surrendering control, but he also felt the strange comfort of knowing the future was not waiting coldly outside the door. It was already inside the family, steady, loyal, and ready to hold what he could no longer hold alone. Camilla accepted the new reality with quiet difficulty. The queen consort had fought to keep her place closest to Charles, but love had changed its shape. She understood that loving the king now meant allowing others to help carry the burden. Her silence no longer felt like defeat. It felt like release. She could remain beside him without guarding every door, every schedule, every decision. The family's strength no longer depended on one person refusing to bend. William became the deepest revelation of the crisis. No document needed to announce it. No formal ceremony needed to confirm it. The prince was no longer waiting outside history. He had stepped into it through pain, duty, and trust. Charles's health scare became the moment the monarchy stopped treating vulnerability as weakness and began treating honesty as survival. This moment did not end Charles's reign, but it changed its meaning. The king remained the king. William became the steady protector. Camilla learned to release control, and the monarchy emerged wounded but clearer about its future. There is no further mystery left to chase. The verdict is complete. The health scare forced the royal family to face fear, but it also revealed the one thing still holding the crown together: trust. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.